Mais on se verra après.
Alors, bonsoir, je suis très heureux de vous présenter ce soir Simon Hartmann, qui est de l'agence HHF à Bâle. Et il se trouve que je vais vous épargner mes présentations souvent un peu laborieuses parce que j'ai perdu mon papier. Donc je vais lui passer directement la parole. Voilà, donc c'est toi qui vas
Merci.
présenter.
J'utilise ça? Non,
Oui, c'est ça.
Ok. Alors tout d'abord, je m'excuse pour ce retard. Et je m'excuse aussi que je vais faire la conférence en anglais, même si le français est passablement bien pour ensuite pouvoir faire s'il y a des questions pour répondre en français. Je crois que je vais commencer tout de suite en anglais maintenant. When we were asked 1 year ago to this conference, we called it "You'll Never Walk Alone." And this maybe strange title has to do that when my partners Tilo Herlach and Simon Frommenwiler and myself founded the office, we wrote down 3 sentences, stupid sentences, young guys founding an office. We wrote down, we want to build, and we want to work abroad, and we want to collaborate with other offices. I think there is almost no architecture office that is founded where people don't want to build, and I think there is almost none neither where people don't want to work abroad if they can. But I think as a programmatic title to say we want to work abroad, we want to collaborate with other interesting offices, this is quite special. And when we were asked to do this conference, I thought it might be interesting to think a little bit about the fact that really a lot of our work is done in collaboration with other people. So we decided to approach that opportunity to understand better how we work, and so we just named this conference with this title, "You'll Never Walk Alone." Maybe you know this Liverpool hymn for football. The tricky, or we thought interesting thing about that name is that you can look and explain football just explaining what 11 people or 22 people do on a pitch, or you can include the 12th person or 12th player as the stadium or as the fan, and according to how you explain it, the meaning the meaning of the explanation changes a lot. So I think if we talk about collaboration, collaboration is not only something you do because it's more easy to collaborate with someone, but there is a set of interesting, I think, observations behind collaboration I would like to explore a little bit. So, Rome. If you're in Rome, do as the Romans do. So, since I'm in France now, and French people cannot talk or write without citing someone important. In the beginning, I thought I will do that myself too. And, oh, this is a pity. Shall I quickly? Okay. I cannot read anymore. I think we don't have to read together, but let me say 2 things about the circumstances where this citation comes from. This is a quote by Marcel Meili. Maybe you know him. He's one of the partners of Meili Peter Architects in Zurich. And this sentence was explained as part of 10 assertions on architecture. Marcel Meili explained in a colloquium in 2006 in ETH Zurich, where this was like 2 months after the book Switzerland, an Urban Portrait was published. Maybe you know this book. I hope so, at least, because I participated too in that book as assistant in ETH Zurich, as assistant of, this is Herzog de Meuron, Diener and Meili, a book which tries to explain the state of urban development in Switzerland. And this is why I take this citation. This was somehow in a context, the citation was brought up in a context where an architect who just delivered theoretical work had to defend the fact that an architect is doing theoretical work. I'm not sure how familiar you are with Swiss context in architecture. Swiss context is quite difficult for theory because we think don't talk, build. So this is kind of a statement which really has to be seen in this context of an architect trying to make people understand that even if what he does as a theoretical work is not on the level, cannot be looked at as scientific for science, but is nevertheless interesting because it's a way to talk about architecture, and if you talk about architecture, this is theory. So, talking a long introduction to talk about collaboration as a working method in our work. So, 3 more sentences before I show you pictures. Collaboration as a working method. Let me clarify that if I talk about collaboration, I'm not talking about just sharing tasks. So this is obvious in architecture because no one builds his house alone or someone else's house alone. But if I talk about collaboration, I mean the phase in architecture to share the moment of creating the meaning, to share an authorship, and to share what normally we all like to say when we walk along a building, that I did that or we did that. And so to collaborate on that very fragile first moment of a project. What makes collaboration so exciting to us is that things become less predictable. The more you have a distance of age, of cultural background with the people you collaborate with, the more it is you have to develop your own language, how to interact with each other, and this is why I would even say this is theoretical work about architecture, to constantly put yourself in the position of collaborating with people that come from a different background. So, this is a painting by an artist. We collaborated on an object. This is a wall behind aluminum, different grays. And if I go back to the painting, we didn't know that artist. We were not specially, how to say it now that I know it will be on internet in the end. It's not that we chose that artist because we liked especially his work, but because this artist was the author of a big painting our new building would destroy. So we asked this artist to join the team, and we had a look at all his work. I don't know if you see that this is like a very colored image, and then painted with white and again with white. So in the end, you have just these small tones of difference, or difference of tones. We had the first meeting with that artist, and we looked at we developed the building, and in the end, what you see here is, unfortunately, you cannot see the slight difference. A little bit, you can see it. Is the result then of just having these very slight different gray tones the artist introduced in a work which, besides that, is not like a collaboration of sitting together and drawing, but there is a very direct and very clear influence from the beginning from that side. This is an image, I mean, maybe for the program, this is a mensa for a school house built in the 50s by Hans Bernoulli, famous Swiss architect. So it's all about monument protection and how to integrate a new program in a school which is not built for but should be used. And this is provisoire for this school, but I hope it will last a moment. This. If I quickly get back to the text I prepared. So this example is an example of a collaboration on an object. And I think collaboration on an object is a very precise frame because, as I said before, you say we do something together. Maybe we don't know each other, maybe we know each other a little bit, but you share authorship and you take it also out of a little bit boring a notion of œuvre in French. You know, that this is one thing I did, and then I did the next one, I did the third one. So when you start to collaborate, you deliberately put yourself in the situation where it cannot be part of just your work and looked at in this a little bit in this way of understanding you as a person through your work. Another work I just quickly show is the Swiss pavilion in the Biennale in Sao Paulo, which was then transferred to Basel again. Because this is also part of this. This looks very different, even if there is, of course, shared idea. This was about how to perceive an exhibition, but I don't want to go in depth. This is, again, a work of collaboration. So, if I was talking before about collaboration on an object, I didn't really read down all the text because I stared in these faces, almost angry not to see images. So before I wanted quickly to talk about context as collaboration. Context as collaboration means that you can have a very direct idea of context, which is I build something in a place and I look at how people live there, I look how things are built in this area, and then I am a contextual architect by applying my knowledge of the site to the place. I think this is an idea of context which is difficult because it makes you, as an architect, you're constantly in the position of kind of a teacher who knows about the place and then knows about the art, about the way to do architecture. We always say we are part of the context. HHF is part of the context in the sense that someone asks us to do something in that place, and this is as important as the wish of the client as a future user, because there is not a system you walk to, you analyze, and you do a project, but every analysis is part of a project because it's your subjective analysis. So the whole question of contextualizing a project is about being convincing with the people you do the project for, with people who have to use it in the end, but also people you collaborate with. And in that sense, if I come back to this notion of collaboration, as an architect, you're constantly in the situation that you have to collaborate with a client, with someone of the state. And if you cannot convince, if you cannot talk about your work, if you cannot make other people part of your work, a project normally is just too fragile to be put, to get through a long period. So collaboration is also one method to be a bigger group, to create more stability for a project, and to be more sure that a project gets to the end, gets built. Now, I have to. This model is one of the reasons why I'm here, because this is the model, one of these models, or no, the big model in China, where I met Emmanuel, where I met a lot of other people maybe you have seen here the last weeks for conferences. If I studied right the conference panels, the informations, I talk about that as before I talked about collaboration on an object, there is also collaboration on as a context itself. So imagine this situation of going in another country and being commissioned to do one object, one house, with a program and everything there, but in the desert. So desert is a precise concept you can refer to. But what was important to us in this or what was the most obvious in this situation is that if all around you there is 99 other architects trying to do the same, the most dominant context for your work is not the site, is not the future user, but is the fact that simultaneously there is 99 others trying to do the same. So before I explain that single work, I would like to say that for us, this experience in China was the third, I think, the third project we did in that way of being invited together with, in this case, 16 other architects. This is a pavilion. The first thing, I think the first construction sign and the first finished building we had as architects. This is a pavilion in south of China, which is a mini structure for children, a 30-meter long concrete structure. And as you can see by these drawings, we had no clue about China. We still have no clue, but we knew that we will not be able to communicate difficult details because it was just too far away, too difficult. in every sense. So we thought the most interesting way to do a project there is to use geometry, difficult, exciting geometry. And this has no, I mean, this is not linked to any question of language. So I don't, this is like one of these finished images, not one of the best, but shows this big red concrete structure in a park. So it's one of 16 pavilions, and it's, even if for us it's a very important building, it's just one structure in this park, and the big meaning of that project is the meaning done by this master plan done by Ai Weiwei, and all these 16 pavilions together as an opening of that city, a new city area. So if you work in a situation like that, I just think that the situation influences the work as much as any wish you would have, what you always wanted to do in architecture, and even is more important as a context of being a group of people trying to do the same. Shortly about the construction method then, we designed it and tried to find out patterns so that children could crawl through that building. Maybe you can see it best here. There's really a three-dimensional wall you can go through, and so we constructed that in Form Z and did these negative volumes, and then really on the construction site we had the Form Z drawings and Chinese workers building up these negative models, putting it together. So it was quite an interesting work besides collaboration, because it was a work where, of course, you could do something much more complicated in China. And you all know the national stadium, so it's not a question of what you can do there, but this is a project of how maybe a little bit too anxious young office imagines that you could do something in China. So it's a projection of the site, which is in the end more dominant than the site itself. I was talking about this HHF house, as we call it, and maybe you see it. It's a house which, from all the details and all the, let's say, spaces of, or all the materials and all the details, is exactly what every non-architect in China would do. So we decided to, you see all these nice sections, and unfortunately, again, not a good picture. If you try to twist the head around on the roof, the letters is HHF. So we did this very banal house with these very, I think, quite elaborate sections and ground floors, with the most stupid sign you could do. As a reaction, maybe you see here all these different typographical attempts we did in a condition where 99 other architects, each one as you, tried to do the best house they ever did and to do like the sign of their company in an architectural way. So we thought it might be intelligent not to do so and just to do the most direct and most stupid approach and just say, you want a sign, you get a sign, and you get it on the roof where it doesn't bother any future inhabitant, but we will always be able to point this out on Google Earth as a project in China. Okay, so I think it's not even worth to talk about the detailing. It's worth to talk about these sections and what happens in a master bedroom. Oh, it's so heavy. With how you can reduce lights. We try to have a minimum of openings necessary. It's a radically easy construction scheme. You see, for example, this master bedroom, which is like the crown of the house for one of these rich oil company guys. We imagine will live there, but of course we don't know anyone who will live there, and we have no clue. So we had to invent our own idea of the house, and the main inspiration was, as I said, the neighbors as architects. To finish, I'm a little bit long, I guess, but so I will talk quickly. Another example of these is project that should be under construction right now in Mexico. A lot of these projects, and to come back to this fil rouge collaboration, this is a group of architects again, 6 in Mexico City. We got to know them the first time when we did this Jinhua Architecture Park in China. So this is also an example of these, if I talk about collaboration, an example of how networks can be then at the beginning of being able to build and being able to build things that, I mean, this is almost student work on the level of there is no constraints. It's so close to sculpture. This one is part of a pilgrim's route. A pilgrim's route which is meant not to be attractive only for pilgrims only anymore, and to give some shelter and some sun. So like this very simple gesture is to add one little slope, boucle, to the pilgrim's route where you go up and you can have a look at the beautiful view, or you can be under it if it rains and sit down or in the shadow. So I will come back to the shapes we developed here, because this is a project which stands in a series then of works we did, and even if collaboration here is important because it's in a group work and you discuss a lot, you go there, you fly in together, you talk about what is the meaning of building one of these structures on a pilgrim's route or for a children's playground. As soon as then it's about creating a shape, designing, going into the materials, then these 3 works I presented are no collaboration at all, or at least only internal affairs of the office. I have small text again. As the context undergoes interpretation, potential identities begin to emerge. When one builds, one by necessity destroys, changing the initial condition. When a building addresses only the practical requirements of the client, the identity of the building is defined by its initial expenditure of energy and resources. It is a massive effort that, as an end in itself, does not contribute beyond itself. Architects focus on going beyond that which is absolutely necessary from the client's point of view. If someone puts additional effort in creating something that is not pragmatically required, this aspect emphasizes as part of the building's identity. Seeking to create identity as a step beyond the project brief leads to theory and the heart of architecture as a discursive discipline. I think this is, again, important to, I think a little bit too dense, but we as architects always deal with the fact that someone pays us to do what we do. And if we consider ourselves as architects and not just as people who make money in the business of construction, we try to add something which goes beyond what the other person imagined in the beginning. So I think as soon as you go beyond what someone imagines, you have to communicate what you do, and you have to collaborate on that sense, on creating that meaning with the person who pays you, with the person who writes about you, with the person who will talk about what you do. And this is like a assertion back to this quote of the beginning as architecture as a dialogic discipline. If we lose that in architecture, and if we lose talking about architecture, we lose maybe the difference between us and just some investor you meet on every street doing a new building. This next thing I want to show is very brief. This is a letter, and we collaborate on a. I think I don't even have pictures of the project. It's a project in Rome. We collaborate with an office from Los Angeles, Johnson Mark Lee, and we started to write. I don't even know if there is something I shouldn't show, but what was interesting about that collaboration is that from the beginning we tried to have a certain discipline in how we structure the exchange of information. So we started with these letters, Dear Johnson Mark Lee, and wrote down everything we thought about the project, and then they wrote back. And so this is a pretty nice exchange, and this can lift the project really on a different level of meaning and in the end of design, because it makes you being the spectator of the other office and them your spectators. So if I talk about collaboration, the maybe most important collaborator and collaboration of offices for HHF is the Chinese artist Ai Weiwei. You can see Ai Weiwei as a part, as an exotic. It can be an exotic guy who knows about China, and who helps you to do get done projects somewhere else in the world. This might be the case for a big office like Herzog & de Meuron, who look always for people to be help on a cultural level, but also practically. For us, of course, this is very different because we don't have anything to get done in other countries. So we don't have to look for people who do it for us. The starting point of this project was that this is a Treehouse, it's called. It's a house in south of China again, in the Shangri-La area. One of the most beautiful areas in the world, or I have been to at least. When we met Ai Weiwei during this first, I go forth and back, and you can look at the images, and I just talk. When we met Ai Weiwei during this first part, this children's pavilion, Baby Dragon, he liked the way we approached this task, and then one day he called in the office and asked if we would be interested in a collaboration, and we said yes, of course. And so the next day I flew to Beijing, and we went to this beautiful site and we started to sketch. So this, for example, is one of these sketches where one draws and then the other draws in, and so. And what you see on the left down is, we were talking about what is a treehouse, because the client said, I want to have a treehouse. This is very often in China, that someone gives you a name for something, and then you have to imagine what this could be. And of course, it must always be the most beautiful thing that ever existed. So we thought, what is a treehouse then? Is itself a tree? Is it something which helps to look at the trees? And we thought it might be interesting to do something which is both a kind of something which makes you think of a tree by the house itself, and something which is like a preferred place where to look at trees from. So what you see, this hexagon, and this is a bamboo stick we were talking about. And like one of the conclusions was that spaces should be done in a way that they always lead further, that they always go around things. When we went home then to Basel, we worked on that, and in the end came up with that pentagon pattern. So it changed like this idea from a 2D to a 3D idea, because the pentagon pattern, you can never do a fitting pattern. So you can never, back to football from the beginning again, footballs always have pentagons and hexagons to do the ball, because with a pentagon alone, you cannot do a surface. So we thought it's interesting to use the pentagon as a pattern to create a surface which cannot be regular, or which has always leftovers. So this house was then developed out of this pattern we developed to have, like in its original geometry, the quality of not being able to be a continuous roof, as a roof like trees, to be under a tree. And then, of course, there is trees in the site. So this was like the first house. Unfortunately, when the concrete work was done, the client asked us to do the 300 houses behind. And when we, after 1 week, said we cannot deliver yet the finished design of all the houses, he asked if we are good architects, and we asked if this could be a good relationship if someone asks like that. And in the end, the house was never finished because we had a fight. So, pity. The next project we did with Ai Weiwei was, this is a young art collector in New York who with his friend wanted to have a house on a huge land, huge terrain outside of upstate New York. And then Weiwei asked us again if we would do that together. If you look at the floor plan, it's a work which, even if it's a very abstract sculpture, it has a lot to do with maybe with the imagination of our side of, you all know Donald Judd's work, you all know these great American architects with all these chimneys in the center of these typologies that are built around the massive elements of chimneys, and with very big variations of spaces in the inside. So this house is, and like an interpretation of these themes, trying to be a very abstract building from the outside, and then in the inside having a lot of views, a lot of light, a lot of spaces that are very complicated, and to do like a counterpart to that very abstract, strong outside scheme. This is a library above, and you can see that there is almost no windows of that house, even if the house itself is absolutely bright inside from all the lights. So this, of course, has to do with the content, with the as this is people who collect art and they use it half as a museum, half for vacation. But of course, if you are a little bit familiar with Ai Weiwei's work, this has also a lot to do with Ai Weiwei. And if I look at our projects and I look at those with Ai Weiwei and those without, I think that they are better with. They are much stronger. They are much. It's always about the precision. It's always about, and I talk about the precision of doing just two things, but do them in the right way and not trying to do too many things. So if I take this to go to the next project, which is called Art Farm, this is also a collaboration with Ai Weiwei, was also finished last year. What you see here is the most common and most cheap way to do buildings in USA to put in animals and to put in whatever you don't want to have in the rain. So this is a standard. Construction method, and where you can choose how you can just put together a little bit the sizes. So for this gallerist who wanted to have an art storage space he can use as a gallery extension in summer, and of course he had no money, and of course he wanted to have the biggest project possible, we just thought we should be able to do something with this cheapest element you can find. So it's a concrete socle, and these elements above put in one row and sloping with the ground. Inside, you can see the insulation. This is also just the cheapest insulation you can find. But just normally people don't let it that way. They put something in front of it. So the whole house is about letting almost everything as it is if you don't have the money to do something else. Contrary, then, of course, the inside of the house, this is all very expensive artworks and filled up everywhere in this house. Again, I wanted to do just a short comment on ideology and collaboration, because I think that even if, of course, there is a lot of examples of collaboration that are based on an ideological idea of a lot of people who share the same ideology, say, let's do something together. I think the way we approach collaboration is pretty much the opposite. We normally don't collaborate with the other young office who has the same background as we have, and we have just the same eyes for the world. We could even say the more someone is different from ourselves, the more we are interested in collaborations. And I think this is a method to keep yourself away from falling always in the same mechanisms to approach architecture, to deal with a new problem that comes, and it's just the only problem that you pay an economical price, because normally if you don't fall always in the same answers, and if you don't build up a machine where you know each other very well, like in an office, then you lose a lot of time, and that means money. But I think this is worth it, at least for a young office, to try to open as much doors at the beginning as possible, instead of trying to be too professional too quickly. Now, I come to the last. Unfortunately, our most important project, of course, does not fit in the lecture, because it's not a collaboration. But I would nevertheless like to show you, because it's also about showing what we work on. This is a very yellow version of a render for a fashion center. There was an international competition. We won 2 years ago, and now it's under construction. It's a very simple structure of 4 walls going through the building, and we this is a construction picture now. By looking at the building which is next to, I think there is not even, yeah. So this is a building where what was next to the building, which is an old building with these arches, and you know, fashion people of course love when something is old and they can put something new with a lot of glass, and then together it's already a lot of ambience. So we tried to create something for this fashion world, which whenever you will take a picture inside this building, which is for showrooms for Hugo Boss, Escada, Puma, all these, and not the highest levels, but these brands who look very much about their image. So they wanted, and we wanted, to create an image where every single photograph will tell about the place it was taken. And so we could do these arches, that you have a high arch, so you can cross with ventilation and whatever you need on the ceiling, and then you have a low arch, because otherwise you would have too many pillars. So it's a very simple game, and then just trying to give an answer on like the curve, how the curve is done to make it not look too old and not look too unfamiliar. And this building is even, this is a little bit a pretext now, but I think if a client chooses you in a competition like that, and 2 years later, not even 2 years after it is built, this means that the client, it will be finished in June. The client is one of your best collaborators you can have. If you have a client who says, I want this, I want it now, I want it fast, then this is one of the most important collaborations you can have. Fortunately, last week he called and said he would like to have another one next to it. So we thought we could, what we did in the sections until now, this is the floor plan of the old building. This is now what we sent him, and did not get an answer until now. No, he said he likes it, but he doesn't know what to do with that. Is a concept for trying to twist that idea of having these arches in the elevation, to put them in the floor plan, and to create these very intense spaces of arches on the trace of an arch for the even more fashionable fashion. Thank you. Question. Pas une. La collaboration à Bâle, tu dis, non? Ouais. Bon. Bon, il y a une question là. Évidemment, si je regarde le projet de collaboration, c'est moins évident de parler des projets à Bâle parce que la plupart des projets, sauf un, on n'a pas fait en collaborant. Si j'essaye de dire pourquoi, je crois que ça c'est peut-être une question d'âge aussi, parce que quand on commence de faire l'architecture, normalement on n'a pas les clients très puissants à la main, comparé à d'autres qui ont déjà 10 ans de plus et qui ont déjà la possibilité de t'inviter pour partager un projet. Nous, on a beaucoup de très petits projets et on voudrait très bien aussi porter cette manière de collaborer à Bâle. Maintenant, il y aura cette initiative de Ausstellung, IBA à Bâle. On a déjà préparé un petit peu avec d'autres bureaux à Bâle, notamment des bureaux très amis comme Christkantenbein ou Buchner Bründler, qui sont petit peu plus vieux, mais qui sont très amis, Bachelor Wagner. Alors, on aimerait bien inviter d'autres personnes à Bâle pour faire des collaborations à une échelle pas comme à Ordos, mais comme dans d'autres, comme Jinhua ou quelque chose comme ça, pour continuer cette voie. C'est pas qu'on fait que des projets à l'étranger. Ça peut-être ça semble comme ça maintenant parce que j'ai montré ces projets de collaboration, mais c'est quand même, on a trop de projets à l'étranger parce que la concurrence est trop bonne à Bâle. Ouais.
Parmi ces projets, ce qui ressort, c'est est-ce que
non, la Mensa, le truc pour l'école, ça c'est public. Et puis, oui, la plupart c'est des privés.
Et est-ce que c'est une tendance qui s'installe ou est-ce que
Oui, on fait des concours. On perd normalement. Ouais. Non, je veux dire, on a déjà gagné des concours et on aimerait gagner beaucoup plus, mais il faut aussi dire que je ne connais pas les concours en France. En Suisse, il y a pour moi un problème de concours qui est assez difficile parce que si l'État a l'argent lui-même, un concours fait sens et un concours professionnel avec un jury de quelques confrères architectes qui ont une éducation très haute, très élevée, ça mène vraiment à un résultat où, à la fin, ce qui a été choisi par le concours va être bâti. Si par contre l'État n'a pas l'argent et les confrères architectes très cultivés choisissent un projet qui à la fin n'est juste pas stable et pas assez puissant pour être confronté à ces investisseurs privés, il y a beaucoup de projets qui sont construits avec beaucoup moins de qualité qu'on ne croyait peut-être, ou ils ne sont pas construits. Et à mon avis, ça mène à une pseudo-radicalité de concours où on essaye de faire quelque chose qui séduit un peu tout le monde, mais qui a l'air radical, que je trouve un problème par un effet de concours sur l'architecture publique surtout. Qu'il n'y a pas, s'il y a un client qui veut un truc, et s'il l'adore, il le fait demain.
Quelles sont en fait vos expériences préalables, en fait, quel était votre parcours et qu'est-ce qui a amené à cette architecture?
Alors, si j'ai bien compris, la première question c'était sur ne pas parler sur les collaborateurs à l'intérieur de notre bureau. Ouais. Alors j'ai honte, on ne va pas devoir parler de. Non, je veux dire, évidemment, la première collaboration, bon, peut-être la première, c'est quand même entre les trois partenaires du bureau. Et nous aussi, on est assez divers l'un de l'autre, différents, mais pour répondre à la question par rapport à la nature de collaboration avec les employés, avec les collaborateurs, j'ai bien compris.
Avec les associés, HHF, c'est...
Ouais. HHF, c'est Herlach, Hartmann, Frommenwiler, c'est les trois noms. Mais quand même, je veux dire, si je pourrais projet, je pourrais citer le nom du collaborateur qui a décisivement, de l'employé qui a décisivement eu son impact sur un projet. Et je crois que ça aussi, ça fait partie de cette, une curiosité aussi envers l'employé. Si on n'est pas curieux, on les vire. Ouais. Et puis l'autre question, c'était notre parcours. Ouais. Alors moi j'ai étudié à Lausanne, à l'EPFL, puis j'ai fait des échanges à Zurich, à Berlin, un stage à Rome. Ensuite, j'ai fait mon diplôme de Lausanne de nouveau. J'ai travaillé 3 ans chez un architecte, Rolf Fuhrer, à Bâle, qui est l'un de ces bureaux à Bâle qui ont... il y a toute une vague, mais vous ne mettez pas tout ça sur Internet quand même. Il y a toute une vague d'architectes, ou une volée d'architectes qui ont 50, 60 ans, qui ont brisé leur bureau, qui était juste la génération un peu trop proche de Herzog et de Meuron et Diner et Diner. C'est une génération qui vraiment avait, quand j'ai commencé les études, c'était ils étaient très proches de ces grands maîtres déjà, assez grands maîtres, Diner et Diner avant tout à l'époque, et puis Herzog et de Meuron. Alors je citerai Vierzebader, Fuhrer, Fasnacht, Müller. Ouais, bon, il y a toute une série aussi, Morger Degelow, qui, bon, c'est peut-être une autre histoire, ou sûrement une autre histoire. Mais alors, ce Rolf Fuhrer, il fait partie d'un bureau qui était, ouais, un de ces bureaux qui sont dans les guides d'architecture de la ville et qui font une architecture avec beaucoup d'amour et avec beaucoup de plaisir, mais dont le bureau, je crois, est aussi une des victimes de cette génération avant, où ces deux bureaux qui ont simplement éclaté tout le monde, sauf eux. Et puis alors, j'ai fait 3 ans chez Rolf Fuhrer. Ensuite, j'ai applied, j'ai demandé, j'ai essayé d'être assistant. Ouais, j'ai été retenu assistant chez Herzog et de Meuron, Diner et Meili, les 4 doyens de l'architecture suisse. Et j'ai fait ça pendant 5 ans, comme maître assistant à la fin. Et puis j'ai dit assez maintenant. Et pendant tout ce temps, j'ai eu l'occasion de pouvoir commencer mon bureau avec les 2 partenaires, qui maintenant on est 14 personnes. Oui, qui devient de plus en plus important dans le sens que c'est une machine qu'il faut nourrir et qu'il faut payer. Oui, c'est pour ça que j'ai ces yeux. Dans le sens que c'est une machine